Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to the show and welcome back to my series, Awakened by Design, Unveiling My Journey with Human Design and My Innate Intelligence. And we are moving along through this series. And so far in the first handful of episodes, I've talked about how I've used my human design and my innate intelligence, which is my body wisdom, intuition, inner guidance system, and just that divine knowing to really get in alignment. And so far we've talked through things like type and authority and strategy and all of the parts of human design. I talked through some gates and the different variables. So you can go back and listen to the first few to kind of catch up on where we are as of now. But in this episode, I wanted to dive into gene keys. And while I'm not going to go super duper deep into gene keys, you can go back to episode 63 with Kayla. And she does talk a little bit about gene keys when she talks about human design, because she kind of ties those two together. And she actually dives deeper into gene keys. That's kind of her specialty. But anyway, for our purposes today, I just want to give a little intro to gene keys and the only reason I want to incorporate this is because I am starting to use this in my practice. So gene keys is kind of like the cousin of human design. And so it allows you to go deeper, but in a different way. And I'm going to explain what that means, but I'm starting to use that in my practice. And as I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, I am starting to incorporate things like hypnotherapy into what I'm doing with my clients. And so I'm able to use human design and gene keys in the hypnosis process to really get on a deeper level with the subconscious, because that's really the whole premise of hypnotherapy, right? You're getting to the subconscious level and kind of untangling things. And utilizing gene keys in human design you're literally putting your energetic blueprint in the equation when you're getting down to the subconscious levels. I just feel like you can't get any deeper than that when you're able to look at it just from this cellular level, right? How you're coded and your design and all of that. So gene keys is really playing a part now in how I'm conducting things in my practice. And so I wanted to have a little bit piece of that in this series, just how it's kind of working for me and how I'm using it and in my own life and how I'm using it in my practice to help my clients, people who work with me. And eventually I'll have sessions where I'll just do kind of like one-off sessions or bundle sessions for people who are wanting to just do the hypnotherapy part and diving into gene keys and human design, using that within hypnotherapy. So I'm really excited about this part. Let's kind of dive into what are gene keys? Gene keys, whereas human design is the energetic blueprint, right? Guiding us and navigating life. Gene keys is like a roadmap. So this is really illuminating our life's path. It's our challenges, our underlying purposes. And so there's this really incredible synergy between gene keys and human design. And whereas human design is helping us present ourselves, gene keys is directing our life's journey. It's helping kind of understand and discover what our life's journey is. So just to kind of go through a little bit of the science and fundamentals of gene keys. So the gene keys are, again, just like human design, right? We're putting together these kind of ancient teachings and these modern day sciences, putting that together. Gene keys is a little bit different. So human design or gene keys is made up of 11 planets, which are consciously and unconsciously defined in your human design chart, right? So it's this astrology piece of the chart. And these 11 planets form your 3 sequences. So there's the activation sequence, the Venus sequence, and the Pearl sequence. And all of these are determined, just like your human design, right? You need your birthday, time, and location. And these 3 sequences together are described as what Richard Rudd, the creator of Gene Keys, calls the golden path. And again, like I said at the beginning, this is really how you're determining, it illuminates your life's path, right? That's what this golden path is. Gene Keys really has kind of this hidden higher purpose that comes to life once we begin the art of contemplation within this model. And so the Gene Keys are known as the quality and the texture of your consciousness. So observing our gene keys really helps release our unique coding which are special messages within us to share. And so it's the combination of the Chinese I Ching or I Ching, however you want to say it, which yes, there are pieces that within human design, but this is really honing in on that piece. And the Chinese I Ching or I Ching discusses the cycles and seasons of change in human design, right? So it's these cycles of change that we go through. The I Ching is essentially identical to the genetic code, which is known as the code of life, right? So there's this genetic coding component of the I Ching, and that's what Gene Keys is really, there's a heavy emphasis of that in the Gene Keys. So again, Richard Rudd, which I mentioned his name, he's the founder of Gene Keys, and he really honors the essence of putting these pieces together again with this kind of ancient wisdom I'm talking about, ancient, I would say science too, and then modern day science, putting that together. So there's these pieces of human design and astrology and I Ching, and then genetic coding, and it's how we are here to show up. If you haven't listened to the first episode that I did in this series, I would go back and listen to that, because in that first episode, I talk about a lot of the science behind human design, and I talk about neutrinos and what neutrinos are, because that's really essentially the piece of this too. Because when I talk about genetic coding, it's the parts of like where things were in the universe when you were born, the energy that was there when you were created, and then when you were born, and that's what's affecting your genetic coding. So I go into that in the first episode. You can go back to that, but I wanted to put that piece out there because the Gene Keys, again, it's gene. The word is in there, right? Genetic coding, Gene Keys, right? It's this coding. We're literally coded with so much information from the time we were created and the time we were born. There's so much to uncover. It's also important to know that the Gene Keys codes are not fixed. They really fluctuate, and it's really a fluctuation as a spectrum of consciousness. And there's 3 levels, and I want to talk about these 3 pieces, and I will get to how to implement this, but I feel like I wanted to give a little bit of a background. The 3 levels are the shadow, the gift, and the city. I'm going to explain what those are, but these patterns of consciousness are really what governs our life. And this is how our human expression in genetic form shows up, right? It's how our human expression is showing up in genetic form. So when you look at the Gene Keys, so back to what I was saying about this kind of spectrum of consciousness, right? There's 3 levels. There's the shadow, the gift, and the city, okay? The shadow, just what it sounds like. This is kind of your challenge to overcome, right? So the shadow frequency in Gene Keys is linked to things like fear, survival, suffering, and really suffering as a collective, right? Like the suffering of humankind. And the biggest fear is that we are separate from the world and everything in it, right? That we're separate. This fear also fuels this kind of victim mindset that arises in this frequency as we feel vulnerable and kind of out of control with our external environment. So we start to see ourselves as the victim, right? And when we're contemplating our Gene Keys and we consider the shadow from like a personal lens and from a business lens, because I use this with business and wellness, right? This is really the space to contemplate our biggest points of resilience in how we get to bring this wisdom of the gift to those that we serve. So it's really contemplating this victim mindset and really honoring our experience and our emotions about this without shaming it, like really honoring it, recognizing it, bringing awareness to it, that we really begin to realize our true potential. So it's working through these shadows by bringing awareness to them. It's the awareness piece, bringing them to light. And that's really what helps us work through them, and recognizing where this fear and survival and the kind of suffering, where these things are showing up and how we're able to transmute those. So that's the shadow. The gift is really more of like a creative quality. So this is the frequency where we really begin to reconnect with the whole, right? Whereas the shadow, right? That the fear, I mentioned the fear of separateness, of us being separate from everything that's around us. And the gift is really where we're reconnecting to that universal consciousness, right? With reconnecting with the whole through these energetic expressions that we see in our Gene Keys. We're really having the embodiment to show up through our physical and mental and spiritual beingness. And this sense of interconnectedness really becomes present as we embrace the shadow, right? The wisdom from the shadow. So we recognize and acknowledge the shadow. We put it together with the gift, right? We're able to put those pieces together. And then the city is the last piece of this. And this is kind of the divine gift, right? That's the definition. That's what it means in Sanskrit. Siddhi, it's Siddhi, means divine gift in Sanskrit. So this is like the ultimate realization of your version of the truth and this energetic expression. So we're looking at Gene Keys and how like the coding that are in your genes, your energetic expression. It's the ultimate
divine truth that is within the coding, right? It's the full embodiment of your shadow and gift. It's putting those together, and you've got wisdom from both. And it really transmutes the entire expression. And so this is where you kind of, it's like when people say they've reached enlightenment, that's kind of the idea behind the city, right? Is you're able to really connect with the shadow, really connect with the gift. And now are at this whole new level of enlightenment. Okay, so that, what I just explained, I know that was kind of, it gets a little dense when you're looking at how to explain the gene keys, but those are kind of the three levels of how the gene keys codes show up, right? Remember, I said that they're not fixed, they fluctuate. And so as you really dive into your gene keys and contemplate each of the gene keys, then you're able to kind of see how they fluctuate. And when we're kind of moving through trials and challenges and kind of maybe struggling, feeling like we're struggling, then we can really look at, what's showing up there, what shadow maybe is showing up now that wasn't showing up, 3 months ago, right? And it's just something else for us to move through and really be able to express these codes in a whole new way. And I love to look at this. This is the other thing that I think is really cool, because if you look at this from a purely scientific perspective, and you can look at, there are a lot of, actually, if you look at like authors like Greg Braden and the other guy whose name is escaping me right now at the moment, they have a lot of books on literally like codes, like genetic coding and gene expression, and how you are expressing what is encoded in your genes. And like, this is an actual thing. So you can look at gene keys, and again, you can see it from kind of this woo lens, like I had mentioned about human design, but there's also this scientific piece. And so when we're able, like your body carries so many messages, right? We're encoded with things that we were born with, like generational things that we experience in everyday life, right? Society, conditioning, experiences, trauma. And then this is embedded in our coding. And so the way I see it, this is how we're using gene keys, right? All the coding is there, but we move through we get to determine how we express that, right? We get to determine, and it's epigenetics at its finest, right? Epigenetics is being able to determine how our genes are expressing themselves. And I see this in gene keys. I see that this as a tool for epigenetics, and being able to upregulate, right, the quote unquote good genes and downregulate the quote unquote bad genes. And in this, I don't like to use, that's what I'm saying, I'm using air quotes. If you could see me, I'm using air quotes. I don't like to really use the words good or bad. But it's, for me, it's looking at like the shadow and the gift, right? The shadow is like, well, we don't want to express our genes in terms of like fear and survival and suffering, right? That's not really how it, but we can learn from that. So while those things will show up, instead of like staying in the shadow, remaining in the shadow, we're able to bring awareness to it and look at it and find kind of the learning opportunities and the growth opportunities within those shadows. Then we can really get to the gift and be able to express that coding as the gift that's available within those gene keys, within that coding. I hope that makes sense. But I just love connecting the gene keys into like epigenetics and genetic coding, because I think it makes complete sense. As we're exploring the gene keys, and I mentioned the golden path, right? So there's the activation sequence, the Venus sequence, and the Pearl sequence. And I want to go through just a few pieces of my own. But basically, the activation sequence is like the physical part, right? What's the purpose of how I'm here to experience this 3D realm, right? The 3D reality. The Venus sequence is more of the emotional piece. Think like the goddess Venus, right? Of love. It's love. It's the emotional part. So what is the journey of me opening up my heart to myself and those that I connect with through, like if we're looking at it through a business lens, right? It's through my work, right? What I'm here to do. And then with the Pearl sequence, the Pearl is more of the mental aspect. So what is my relationship to prosperity, and what does it mean? What does that mean for me in my business, right? The Pearl sequence. And so there's a lot of really cool pieces we can pull out. And so I wanted to just go through a few of these just to give you some examples, like tangible examples. Really, when I'm looking at gene keys within myself, it's really helping show my true life's path, like what challenges are here that are meant for me, my underlying purpose, helping direct my life's journey. So all like the things that gene keys are here to show us, that's what it's helping me unfold. When I look at my gene keys, it's really been such a helpful tool for helping me show my life's path and the challenges that were meant for me, and helping me really work through those. And again, like I was saying, where, we all have this shadow side of all of these codings. We can choose to stay in the shadow side, or we can choose to work through it and learn from it, right? And so I think that's a big piece for me with the gene keys is it's revealing, really unveiling a lot of the challenges that are meant for me. And looking back, you can kind of see the breadcrumbs, right? And it's helping really direct where I'm going next and how I'm going to show up when I do that here. So if I start with the activation sequence, right? It's kind of your life's purpose. And for me, it's been so helpful in really uncovering a lot of like what the challenges are for me, like what challenges I'm here to work through and learn from and transmute. And so like there's a sphere called life's work, right? That really explains what you're here to do. And I think for me, the Gene Keys has been most transformational for business. And now you can use it in so many different ways. And it's really not like just for business at all. It's just the way I've been looking at it, just because when you, and my entrepreneurs out there listening can totally resonate with this. When you run a business, when you start a business, when you're an entrepreneur, the business takes on a life of its own, right? It's literally like birthing a human. Like when you birth a human, you make the human, you form the human in your body, and then you birth it, and then it's here, and then you have to take care of it. But it's like this, literally this, you created it like from nothing. And that's exactly like a business. And caring for a business, well, for those who aren't entrepreneurs or don't have a business and you're listening, you're like, okay, you're really going to compare. But yes, I am. Like I've done both. So I can tell you from experience. And it'll cause you just as much heartache and stress and anxiety and all the other emotions you feel as a parent, like, parenting a human and creating a human. Your business will do the same thing. And so when you are in the trenches, a lot of times you lose sight of why you're doing the thing you're doing, right? Because you get hit with hardships and trials. And as I talked about in the episode about my profile lines, I'm here to be the great experimenter. So I have fallen on my face too many times to count. I have made lots of what from the outside world consider mistakes more times than I can count. And I've been hit really hard by lots of different things in life. And so for me, being able to use a tool like Gene Keys helps me. It kind of keeps me grounded because I'm able to look at, like, use these tools to really see, like, okay, let's look at all these trials and, again, what other people might see as mistakes and failures, and let's see why they happened, right? What they're here to teach me, the gift that's on the other side of that. So I can really work through, like, okay, how is this showing up? The shadow part of this, it showed up because these things are expressing, the shadow parts of these things are expressing themselves in some particular way. And how can I get to the gift? And so that's been really helpful for me in my business. So going back to what I was talking about, the activation sequence, there's a part about life's work, right? And I talked about my conscious sun when I was talking about the incarnation cross. That's basically what this is. So for me, like, freedom is a theme of this one, like the gift and the city, this kind of ultimate expression is freedom. So that is what I'm here to play out. That's what I'm here to do for myself. And it's what I'm here to do for other people, to bring that out. And it's the freedom. And it's me as the changer, right? It's the line 3 for me. My 3 line is the changer. I'm using experimentation. And yes, this is going to lead to less, quote, stability, because I'm here to just always be changing and trying new things out. But I'm here to change the way people feel about who they think they are. And I'm here to change the way about how people do things, the way they think about what they're doing and how they're doing it. So my life's work gets to bring freedom, right? Freedom is the theme there. And I just love that. And this has been a big piece of really helping me helping me understand how to handle challenges in life. Then there's these other pieces, right? There's the evolution sphere, and there's the radiance. I talked about radiance. That's the unconscious sun piece. That's the other piece of this. The radiance comes in from Gene Keys, and it's that gate of force, right? Am I forcing things or am I allowing things? That's a huge one for me. And then there's the purpose sphere, right? This is a big one. This is about really embodying our beingness, right? Beingness that lies within us, and just really bringing a consciousness of who we're here to be, our purpose, right? The superficiality piece is a big one. And I talked about this when I talked about the unconscious earth in the incarnation cross episode. But the shadow of this one is superficiality. And this has been a huge one for me. And when I really dove into the Gene Keys and looking at it at this sphere and looking at the superficiality piece, again, it was a little hard for me to understand at first. Like, I don't feel like I'm a superficial person, right? I don't feel like when I think before, when I was thinking of superficial, I'm thinking like fake, right? But that's not really what it means. It just means not going deep enough, right? It means just surface level and not going deep enough. Where am I being superficial in how I'm running my business? Where am I being superficial in how I'm showing up for my community? Where am I being superficial in, the offers that I'm bringing out? So in other words, how can I go deeper, deeper, deeper? That's what I need. That's where I need to go deeper. Asking, am I being distracted by superficiality and just being superficial because I just want to go boom, 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 move to the next thing, right? Rather than going deeper. And so that's really kind of what birthed this whole journey that I'm on right now with this podcast series. It's like, okay, how can I go deeper? I know I have a lot of informative things on my podcast, and I love teaching and I love educating and I love informing. But when I'm asking myself, okay, how do I kind of take myself out of this shadow of superficiality? It's going deeper. And this was it for me. It's going deeper when sharing me and sharing my heart and sharing my journey. Because again, as a 3-5, this is what I'm here to do. Like, I'm really trying to own that piece of me and let that be what leads me in my business and helps lead the people that are listening to me and, following me and learning from me, is using my experience. I'm not going to lie, it's a challenging one for me. I don't necessarily love talking about myself. Which for me, it's easy doing the educational and informative episodes because I'm just teaching and I love teaching. I went to school for that. I've done that basically my whole life. It's easy, but we're not necessarily here to do the things that are the easiest for us, right? I don't think that, not saying it can't be easy, but sometimes we really have to step out of our comfort zones to get to our life's purpose. And that's really a lot of what these pieces in the Gene Keys have taught me. And this piece of superficiality has taught me. And so I wanted to challenge myself. Like, y'all, I'm serious. This whole series is a challenge for me. And I find myself wanting to cut myself off sometimes on going deeper with the things I'm talking about or shortening the episodes. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to let it flow. If these episodes are 15 minutes, they're 15. If they're an hour, they're an hour. But I'm just going to let it flow, and I'm going to go deep, and I'm going to go as deep as my inner guidance system is telling me to go. And I'm going to talk about myself, even though I don't love talking about myself. But here I am. I want to be able to work through this piece. And again, with the purpose, I mentioned this in the Incarnation Cross episode. The way that this gate is expressed for me is through the 5 line. And that was what I was saying. It's a gate in the throat center. And so it's about bringing rhythm and breath and vibration and tone to how I'm bringing my purpose, which means using my voice and speaking and sharing. And that's what I'm doing. Like, I am literally using this to step into this next iteration of me, this next evolution of me. And that's what's leading me through. So that is the activation sequence. The Venus sequence, I want to mention a few things about the Venus sequence. What's cool about the Venus sequence is because it's around like love and relationships and the emotional pieces. The planets in this sequence really hold the keys to a lot of ancestral and generational wounds that we can help heal from. And it's really designed to just help your heart crack wide open and become more connected to life, more connected to the divine, more connected to yourself, more connected to God, if that word resonates with you. But it's really navigating the emotional realm, your emotional realm. I love this piece because, and this is why this is a really helpful piece when I'm working with the hypnotherapy, because we all know that a lot of our, limiting beliefs and things that are showing up in our lives are because of some kind of wounding, right? From the past, whether it's generational, whether it's trauma or whatever. And really being able to tie in these pieces of the Venus sequence, we're able to see like, okay, what are the pieces that were generationally encoded in me, right? That I'm here to kind of work through and untangle. What are the woundings that have shown up, ancestrally or whatever? We can really uncover those. And so within the Venus sequence, right, we have the purpose sphere, right? It's an opportunity to find a deep relationship with your own true purpose. So this is a relationship like with yourself and your purpose. Then there's the attraction sphere. And this one is really cool. This one is the energetic imprinting from your unconscious moon placement when you were in the womb. So these are things that were genetically encoded in you, right? And so when you're looking at this sphere, the attraction sphere, it's not so much like sexual attraction. It doesn't have to be about sex, right? It has to do with co-creation and chemistry with yourself, with your relationships, it could be with your business, it could be with, friends, family, but it's calling forth the relationships that's going to help you fulfill your highest purpose. And so for me, this was a big one. The attraction sphere was a big one I worked through. So the gift of mine is gate 23 or gene key 23. And the gift is simplicity and the shadow is complexity. So for me, really, when I contemplate this one, when I was really working with this one, it's like once I really finally understood what it means, it's basically like, okay, where are you making things complicated? Like the gift is simplicity. So for me, when I'm looking at, calling forth relationships that'll help fulfill our highest purpose, it's all the relationships, right? It's not just like your romantic relationships or friendships or family. It's all of them with business, money, you name it. It's all this really yourself. So where am I making things complicated? Which I am really good at making things complicated because as I mentioned before, I am a sacral manifesting generator, but I have a really good habit of bringing things up to my head and letting them roam around and chew on it up there. That's how I complicate things. We're asking myself like, okay, where am I getting stuck? Or maybe convince myself that this has to be complicated or complex. Where can I simplify things? Where can I hone in on an aspect of what I'm doing that can be simplified? And so this has been something that I go to again and again. And when I feel like I'm getting frustrated or stuck or overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, simplicity. Where can I simplify things? Where do things get to be simple? What am I overcomplicated? What can I take away to make things more simple for me? And this is a big one. And of course, everybody can benefit from this, y'all. So it's not like, this isn't there for you just because if you don't have this gene key activated. And this is a big shadow that shows up for me a lot is overcomplicating things and making things more complex than they have to be. So this is a big one for me to work through. So within this sequence too, you have you have the intelligent quotient, you have the emotional quotient, and you have the spiritual quotient. And all of these are things that were encoded in you at a young age. So we're looking at, basically it's the energetic imprinting that we receive between the ages of 14 and 21, right? So there's ages 1 through 7 are kind of when we get encoded with a lot of conditional things and societal things. And then between ages 14 and 21 is another period of time where we're encoded with some other things. So this energetic imprinting that we receive in those parts of our life, and this is how it shows up. That's where I'm saying like this can totally help with so much trauma and wounding and generational things. And I'm not going to go through all of these. This has just been a game changer for me, understanding, beliefs about certain things and conditioning about certain things and why certain things are hard for me, why certain things get to be easier, how I'm working through this wounding. Because the other piece of this in this sequence is called the core wound. And this has been a big one. So the core wound is the final sphere in the Venus sequence. And though the gene keys might seem like a journey through, much of it is a journey in, right? And each of the spheres in the Venus sequence is kind of this journey deeper into our hearts and closer to this version, our version of unconditional love and how that shows up for us. So the core wound is this wound, this really sacred wound that connects us to others. It's what drives our evolution. And it's really the core of our suffering. So I was talking about kind of how the things, the shadow parts show up for us, right? In the gene keys. And it's this core wound is a big piece because this is the thing that's going to show up over and over again for you if you don't allow yourself to recognize it, be aware of it, and learn from it. So the suffering of this wound is really the journey to connecting with a higher purpose. And I think that this is kind of like the ultimate lesson that God has for us is working through this core wound. So while most of the other parts of the Venus sequence have been about relationships, like wounding in relationships, like the emotional quotient, the spiritual quotient, like all of those, and all of those kind of that coding is really about relationships. This is really more, the core wound is more focused on you as an individual, like aloneness, right? It really dives into like bringing yourself to contemplate questions like, will I be the wounded victim, right? Am I going to be the wounded victim or am I going to be the wounded healer? Because we all have wounds. We're all here. We're all born with wounds because things are encoded in us from birth, right? Generationally and from our parents. And all of that is encoded in our DNA. And so with this wound, we're able to ask ourselves and answer the question, am I going to be the wounded victim or am I going to be the wounded healer? And the sphere really holds the codes for suffering in this lifetime. That's what I'm saying. I think that this is the code, the lesson that our soul really chose to learn and what God has us here to learn. This one is one that I am still working through because this one really got me and still gets me to this day, because I mentioned in one of the previous episodes that I have a lot of activation in my splenic center, which is your center for intuition. And so I feel like what I'm working through right now and what I'm working on really honing in on is what that means because I feel, and this again is me going with my intuition and my inner voice, is there's something to that. And there's some intuitive gifts that I haven't been able to tune into and hone in on yet, and maybe not fully stepped into, that I'm working on. And this core wound, the gift of my core wound is, I'll give you a guess, the gift is intuition. And when I learned that, I had already studied my human design chart, and I saw how much activation, I know how much activation is my splenic center with that thought. And then when I dove into Gene Keys, I'm like, holy crap, like this is the core wound, literally like the core suffering, the core wound of my journey in life. And the gift on the other side of that is intuition. It's really kind of mind blowing for me. And so that is why I've really made intentional efforts, and I am making intentional efforts to dive into that and what that means. And it's still a journey for me. I mean, I think with anything in life, it's always a journey. And it's the same with you. I don't think there's ever a point where you're like, oh yeah, I understand all of this and I can express the gift in the city and this, total enlightenment and all these. It's constantly flowing. It's constantly, because we're constantly going through experiences and learning, and it shifts and shapes how we're expressing all of these things and all of this coding that's within us. And so I think I'm still diving into this piece and trusting my intuition and listening to my intuition and helping that guide me, and maybe, seeing what that means for me and uncovering whatever kind of hidden gifts or whatever that I think might be lying there and kind of waiting for me to uncover. So I'm excited about this one. And I just think it's really cool how all these things lined up. And I've had like kind of inklings in my head about these things. And then when I'm learning about my Gene Keys, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I suspected this, and then it shows up, right? So the last thing I want to talk about is the pearl sequence. And this one is really cool because there's a lot of this, because this is more of the mental piece and how I'm connecting to my community and the collective. And this is a big one that you can tie into business. And this is how we really make strides, my clients, especially since I tie this into hypnotherapy, is to uncover a lot of the things that are kind of cloudy and muddy and foggy. So like, for example, there's like the first sphere is the vocation sphere, right? And this is the center for growth and maturity, right? So the way that the core wound kind of transmutes itself into our vocation is through selflessness and wisdom and generosity. So when we look at like the Venus sequence we just looked at, it really helps shine a light on these other pieces and this last sequence, the pearl sequence, that is the golden path, right? It's taking us through the path. So vocation is basically bringing you to this holy grail question of how can I be of the greatest service to the collective, to the whole? How am I here to do that? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a job, like vocation as like a career or a business to do that. It doesn't mean that, because that not everybody is meant to have a career or a business. It doesn't mean that. But in life, you do have a vocation, right? There is a purpose to why you're here. And so it's really being able to untangle that and how I can be of greatest service to the collective, whether it's through your business or your job, or it's through another way. So I love that one. And for me, when I'm diving into my vocation line, Gene Key Gate, for me, it's all the same thing. The way I express this one is as it's called the director and sales, which I thought was like, okay, I've never really liked the whole sales thing. Never thought I was that good at sales, but I'm reading through it. I'm like, okay, like to me, it's just a place that's showing me that I haven't really stepped into this for myself, right? Here again, let me tell you this, because this is a really interesting too. The gift in this Gene Key in the center, I'll give you one guess. It's intuition. So there's a common theme here. You see, there's a common theme. When I'm looking at how I express this Gene Key, basically it's telling me that there's power in being able to guide others to achieve a common goal or vision for the collective, right? I'm able to lead people to do that. It's through selling that people are really engaged with it. And it's with an open heart that people buy into whatever it is that I'm leading them to do and helping them expand. And for me to be of service, like that's how I'm here to be of service, is being able to sell them on whatever it is that that I have to help them be of service. So it's me being of service to help them be of service, if that's making sense. So I find that Gene Key is a really interesting one. And then there's the brand sphere, which I think is pretty cool. This one is really your version of how you show up energetically and represents your innermost essence, like your personal brand is what it is. And again, you don't have to have a business or a job, career, or company to have a brand, because you have a personal brand, whether you have a business or not. It's how you're showing up, right? It's kind of your inner magic that you're here to bring to the outer world, and how you're embodying the gift that is here in this. For me, it's freedom. Again, freedom and intuition are really common theme in a lot of these gene keys for me. Through looking through a business lens, it's like, okay, what is my inner truth that I'm here to share while being this brand of who I naturally am, and in showcasing this freedom, the gift of freedom, the city of freedom, and how do I use that within my brand and how I'm showing up? How am I offering that to people? And for me, that's kind of the driving force of how I create masterclasses and programs and all the things I'm creating in my business. It's creating more freedom for people. And for me, freedom means so many different things. It's freedom in their body, freedom in their mind, freedom in their spirit, freedom in life, and freedom financially. It's all these things that I want to help people experience freedom. So I hope that this is giving you, I didn't go through all of them, but I want to leave it right there because I think that's a good place to stop. I hope that understanding a little bit about the gene keys, how I'm integrating those into my own life, and just a little background of how I'm integrating those into the hypnosis sessions is giving you a good picture of really how we can use these to create more ease and flow. And with the gene keys too, it's about healing. And I think that's the other gift here, is it's this healing part where we're able to kind of go into the subconscious, uncover these pieces, and really, it's like going into the shadowy part of our subconscious to uncover the shadows of the gene keys. That's what I feel like a lot of times they're just kind of hiding. It's like going to the dark side of the moon, right? We don't really know what's back there until we go back there and see what's hiding. And that's kind of what's going on with the subconscious. It's these shadows a lot of times are showing up without us even realizing it. When we can go into the subconscious and uncover the why and the how it got there, all those things, is when we really were able to get to the gift of these gene keys that the gene keys offers. And it's the gift that your genetic coding is offering you, and being able to express your genes in a whole new way. It's putting it together with epigenetics. Like this is the magic of all of it. I love this stuff and I could talk about it all day. I'm going to invite you and to check out, I've mentioned this the past few episodes, but I want to talk a little bit more about my program that's coming out that this is kind of all leading into. So I have my masterclass that you can still jump into and you can catch all the replays. It's going to be there for a little while longer before it ends up being like a paid thing, but for now it's still there. But my program is called the Innately Aligned Entrepreneur. And the Innately Aligned Entrepreneur is putting these pieces together. We're looking at human design. I am putting together your gene keys, and you're not necessarily learning about your gene keys, but it's more about me integrating this into our sessions together and helping me uncover things about you. But it's putting together human design. It's putting together your innate wisdom, like by using things like your cycle and your body and body awareness to really tune into how your body, your energy is flowing and your energetic needs, and using that to create ease and flow in your business and in your life and your relationships. And if what I'm talking about in these episodes has you curious, like, okay, there's a lot to pull from here. There's a lot to learn from here. How do I do that in my own life? That's what this program is for. And uncovering all these pieces within yourselves and finding the shadows that are hiding, that are really holding you back, and to be able to turn that into the gift that you're here to share with the world. Like, what does that look like? It's really tuning into these pieces and learning these parts of yourself. And it's understanding your human design, how you were energetically coded, how you were genetically coded, and being able to work with that and working with that in the best way, and uncovering your energetic resources that you have and how you best show up. And I'm using this program. It's going to be a 3-month program to tie in all this. So I'm going to help you understand this for yourself. So again, while we're not doing human design and gene keys, that's a lot. And just, so I don't want you to think you're going to get overwhelmed with information. We're just going to hone in on the human design part for you. So it's going to be the human design part, and it's going to be the cycle syncing part. So understanding your human design, understanding how to use things like cycle syncing, because as a woman, we have always changing energy, but we can tie in our human design with our always changing energy and our 28-day cycle, or plus or minus, depending on who you are, to be able to show up in a totally different way and find more ease and flow. And remember, freedom. Freedom is a common thing for me. It's the freedom for me. And that's, I think, the ultimate goal of this program is giving women freedom from anxiety and burnout and analysis paralysis and second guessing themselves and questioning their intuition and questioning their energy and questioning their innate intelligence and questioning what they're here to do in the world and questioning how they're here to do it and how they're here to show up. Like all of these things, questioning all of this, second guessing all of this, not understanding all of this, that really is what is holding you back from true freedom and from thriving and from feeling like, yes, I am showing up as the full expression of myself. I am showing up. I am bringing my gifts, 100% bringing my gifts to the world in the best possible way without holding back. And I'm supporting and serving the collective in the best possible way. And so when you understand all of these pieces of yourself that I'm going to teach in this program, the innately aligned entrepreneur program, that's what you're learning. That's what you're getting. That's what I'm going to help walk you through. And so it's going to be a combination of learning these things about yourself. And again, just like I talk about in my masterclass, if you jump in, it's not just about knowing the information, it's about how to implement it. So yes, I'm going to teach you the information, but I'm also going to help you implement it. How to implement these pieces of my human design into my life and into my business. How do I integrate these pieces of, understanding my cycle and this body wisdom that we have? How do I integrate that into, how I show up every month in my business and operating your business from a place where you can really optimize your energy levels and save your body from frustration and dis-ease in the body, right? And then we're going to tie in, like I mentioned, my hypnotherapy, hypnosis sessions, incorporating gene keys and human design. I'm going to incorporate that. And so you're getting those each month so we can really untangle, me and you together, untangle pieces that are stuck or knotted up, or again, going to the dark side of the moon and figuring out what's back there. What can we bring light to, shed light on that we can alchemize into this gift and bring your gifts to the world. Super excited about this. I'm going to start putting links in the show notes to the program. So if you're interested, you can read more about it. If you want to set up a call to talk more, that's fine too. You don't have to, but if you want to do that, you can. I'm happy to answer questions, or you can email me or message me on any of the socials. I'm happy to answer questions, but this program is coming, and this program is going to be absolutely incredible. And it's going to change everything about how you see yourself, how you see life, and how you're showing up in life and in business. And I'm really excited. So that being said, I am going to see you on the next episode where I'm going to talk more about my journey through my innate intelligence, body wisdom, my health, and that whole journey. So I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's @TheHopePedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.